Now let's just cover briefly what happened here, just for the few people who may not know. Joe Rogan, you remember him, he's been on TV forever, from Fear Factor to UFC, he's just been in entertainment forever. Started a podcast called The Joe Rogan Experience. It's like the biggest podcast on earth, it's gigantic. Dude brings in people from all walks of life, from all political ideologies, and sits them there for like 3 hours just probing, just asking for information. Again, all walks of life. Keep in mind, remember what I was just telling you about how they eat each other? Joe Rogan was a Bernie Sanders supporter. We're not dealing with some hardcore right-winger here. A Bernie Sanders supporter is a Bernie bro. All right, so back to Joe Rogan. Has this huge podcast. As part of his podcast of having people on and interviewing, he had on a couple doctors. Talk about COVID, talk about the narrative, talk about vaccines, talk about lockdowns, talk about, just the effectiveness of all that. Experts in their field, by any stretch of the imagination, experts in their field. And from that, the system decided Joe Rogan, the Bernie Sanders supporter, was some hardcore right-winger who had to be destroyed. And you remember, as soon as they started with all that, and censoring and yelling at him, Joe Rogan made a gigantic mistake. Again, I hear Joe Rogan is a good guy. I do not know him. He's not a friend, but I'm not going to badmouth Joe Rogan. But he did make a gigantic mistake. He didn't know what time it was, and he apologized. Put out some little Instagram video. Hey, guys, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to offend anyone. I'm sorry. And what sucks about that is this. That's a decent thing to do, right? If you've made someone mad, you apologize. But he didn't understand who he was dealing with. He doesn't understand who he's dealing with. He's not dealing with communists who are offended about the doctors. He's not dealing with communists who care about anything. He's dealing with communists who live to destroy. There is no apology, no extended hand. There's nothing you can do that will dissuade them from their goal because it is their religion. And since he didn't get run off the air for the doctors, the communist hordes decided to start digging through his history and dug up some stuff about him saying the N-word.
The thing.
Yeah, saying the word.
You've already said
is just like saying.
She's calling you a
like this boy that he's a and starts calling them word. There should be a word like.
Okay? Obviously, short little snippet, extremely out of context. If you actually look at any of them, that's clearly not. He wasn't on some racist rant over there. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Look, it doesn't matter. It doesn't need me to defend him because he's not going to defend himself. And none of his friends apparently will defend him either because, again, they consume all. One little quick pause here before we get to The Rock, speaking of friends. Quick pause. We're going to do another little history rewind. Another thing that strikes you when you read through the histories of communism isn't just that the communists end up lined up against the wall and shot. It's how many people could have done the right thing and protected the innocent, but they were so scared of the communist monster coming for them, they would betray anyone and everyone for the approval of that communist monster. Children would turn in their parents. Parents would turn in their children. Husbands their wives. Wives their husbands. This was the norm. This was the norm. So let's get back to that. The Rock has a relationship with Joe Rogan. Unlike me, actually is friends with Joe Rogan. Expresses a little bit of public support. Hey, I like Joe. Let him go. Some communist hack named Don Winslow, who has a history of lying, blasts The Rock for it and says, but he used the N-word. And The Rock promptly comes out and apologizes and runs out on his friend, leaves him on the battlefield, scared of the hordes who might be coming his way. None of this sounds familiar, does it? And that is funny because I do remember, man, I used to watch wrestling a lot. I remember The Rock saying stuff like this.
Yeah, you're looking like a bloated transvestite Wonder Woman, ready to fight crime. Pew, 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 pew.
Okay, now obviously I'm not offended by that. I doubt you are either, but it is funny how often they are guilty. Now let's set The Rock aside, because honestly, he's an actor. I don't care. You shouldn't care. Go watch his movies or don't watch his movies. Doesn't matter to me at all. His opinion shouldn't mean as much as it does. I realize it does, but it was just an interesting example of them running out on him. They all ran out on him. And then Joe Rogan. I don't know what to say. I don't want to pile on someone who appears to be a nice, decent guy. And I have good friends who do know him, and they say he's a nice, decent guy. But Joe Rogan, again, after having just apologized and watched that apology do him no good whatsoever, then comes out and apologizes again.
Hello, friends. I'm making this video to talk about the most regretful and shameful thing that I've ever had to talk about publicly. There's a video that's out that's a compilation of me saying the N-word. It's a video that's made of clips taken out of context of me of 12 years of conversations on my podcast, and it's all smushed together, and it looks horrible, even to me. Now, I know that to most people, there's no context where a white person is ever allowed to say that word, never mind publicly on a podcast. And I agree with that now. I haven't said it in years, but it's not my word to use. I'm well aware of that now, but for years I used it in that manner. I never used it to be racist because I'm not racist.
Joe, you gotta know what time it is. This is not going to dissuade them. When you do things like this, it is the equivalent of having a pool of sharks in front of you and just dripping blood into the water. This drives them crazy. Well, let me ask you something. Why do you think, with all the things I say here on TV and on my radio show, why do you think I've never been canceled? Why do you think that is? You think they haven't tried? Let me tell you, there's two reasons I haven't been canceled. One, the first, they not only let me say anything I want, they're not bothered in the least when the left gets mad. That's one. So the first and iHeart, both of them, to their credit, let me say whatever I want. So let's get that out of the way first. Without that, there would be no me. But two, I never apologize. In fact, I don't just ignore them. If I say something that makes the communists mad, I double down. And let me tell you, there's two different reasons I do that. One, I hate communists. And whatever they hate, I love to feed it to them forcibly. I think it makes me laugh when they suffer. So I enjoy that. Two, I understand if you double down, they run away. They just scurry off back into the shadows and wait for their next opportunity to try to cancel me, get me to grovel and apologize, but I don't. Therefore, I'm still here. That's not because I'm smart. It's just because I know what time it is. It's time to wake up and grow up. I know you're a good person. I understand that. You got to know who's in the house. Is it mom or is it that hardened felon we talked about earlier? Hey, thanks so much for watching the first on YouTube. If you liked what you saw, go ahead and like and subscribe. You heard me. Like it, subscribe. You'll get a lot more of it and a lot more of me.